It all started on a cold, moonless night when I found myself waiting at the bus stop, staring into the dark emptiness of the street. The kind of silence that presses down on you, the kind where even the usual city noises seem to disappear. The midnight bus was my last hope to get home after a long, exhausting day. When the bus finally appeared, its headlights cutting through the fog, I felt a strange mix of relief and unease. The doors creaked open, and I stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, shadows pooling in the corners. There weren't many people on board, maybe half a dozen passengers scattered around. But there was something off about them. They didn't talk, didn't move much, almost like statues frozen in time. The air felt heavy, like the bus wasn't just moving through space, but through something else, a place between here and somewhere else entirely. As the bus pulled away from the stop, the city lights started to fade behind us, swallowed by thick darkness. The windows fogged up, blurring the outside world until all I could see was blackness. At that moment, I realized this was no ordinary ride. There was a quiet tension, like the bus itself was holding its breath. I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was watching, waiting for what was to come next, and that I was trapped in the middle of it. As the bus rolled deeper into the night, I kept stealing glances at the other passengers. At first, I thought maybe they were just tired, the kind of exhaustion that makes people sit silently and stare ahead. But there was something far more unsettling about them. Their eyes seemed vacant, almost hollow, and their faces expressionless, like they were trapped in a dream they couldn't wake up from. Some were staring straight ahead, others looked like they were staring right through me, yet no one acknowledged my presence. I tried to catch their eyes, hoping for a friendly nod or even just a glance back, but there was nothing, only stillness. I noticed their hands resting unnaturally still on their laps or gripping the seats with a rigidity that felt eerie. The silence wasn't just from fatigue, it felt forced, like the air itself had been sucked out of the bus. I even tried to start a conversation once, asking a passenger if they knew where the bus was headed, but my words seemed to vanish into the heavy air without a response. It was as if the bus had become a vessel carrying ghosts, or lost souls instead of living people. The more I looked, the more the bus felt like it was drifting into another realm, one where the usual rules didn't apply, and where I was completely alone, surrounded by silence that screamed louder than any noise. That's when the unease deepened, and I knew this night was far from ordinary. The atmosphere inside the bus was growing heavier by the minute when things started to change in ways I couldn't explain. The lights flickered sporadically, casting brief shadows that danced along the ceiling and walls. The hum of the engine seemed to waver, sometimes dropping to a low, eerie silence. Outside the windows, I could no longer see the familiar glow of streetlights or passing buildings. Instead, there was only darkness, thick and impenetrable, like the bus had slipped into a place where no map or GPS could reach. At one point, the bus came to a sudden stop in the middle of nowhere. There was no sign of a bus station, no road, just endless blackness pressing against the glass. I pressed my face to the window, searching for something, anything, but all I saw was an empty void. Then, the bus started moving again, but this time the ride felt different, slower, almost like it was gliding through a fog that swallowed sound and light. I tried to check my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. When I looked out again, I realized something terrifying: the route we were on didn't exist. The roads, the landmarks, none of it matched any place I'd ever known. Panic began to rise in my chest as the realization set in that this bus, this ride, was disappearing not just from the physical world but from reality itself. And I was trapped inside. It wasn't until the silence grew unbearable that I finally understood the terrifying truth. I was the only living passenger on this bus. I had been so focused on the eerie stillness around me that I hadn't fully processed just how lifeless the others truly were. Their eyes, once vacant, now seemed completely void, as if they weren't just asleep or distant but gone. I tried to speak to them again, louder this time, but my voice bounced off the walls like it was swallowed by the darkness. Panic clawed at me when I reached out and gently shook one of the passengers. No response. Their skin was cold, unnaturally so, and their bodies stiff, as if frozen in time. The dread that filled me was suffocating. I was utterly alone, surrounded by shadows of people who looked human but weren't. My mind raced with questions. Who were they? What had happened to them? And more chillingly, what was going to happen to me? The bus kept moving, but the destination was nowhere. There was no turning back, no escape in sight. I felt completely isolated in a place that was no longer the world I knew. The fear wasn't just about being alone. It was about being trapped somewhere between life and death, where no one could hear my screams. The weight of that realization pressed down on me, and for the first time that night, I truly understood the nightmare I was living. As the bus continued its eerie journey, things only grew darker, both literally and figuratively. It wasn't just the silence or the lifeless passengers anymore. I started noticing things that I couldn't explain. Whispers echoed softly through the bus, like voices carried on a cold wind, but when I turned to listen, there was no one speaking. Shadows shifted in the corners of my vision, flickering like something trying to stay hidden. I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting, but every time I tried to catch their source, there was nothing there. At one point, the temperature dropped sharply, my breath turning to mist, and a sudden chill ran down my spine that felt far beyond the cold outside. I saw fleeting shapes, dark figures, passing between the seats, just out of reach, always vanishing when I tried to focus. The bus itself seemed alive, groaning and creaking like a living thing, as if it were carrying more than just passengers. Fear gripped me in a way I've never experienced before. It wasn't just fear of the unknown. It was fear of being trapped in a place where the rules of reality no longer applied. I realized I was caught in something supernatural, something ancient, something hungry. The whispers grew louder, and I could swear they were calling my name, inviting me to join them. That night, I understood what it meant to be truly alone in a place where no one was meant to survive. When the bus finally stopped, or at least when I thought it did, I found myself back in the city, or so it seemed. But something was different. The streets were empty, the usual hum of life replaced by an eerie stillness. I stumbled off the bus, shaken and cold, desperate to tell someone what had happened. But when I tried to explain, people looked at me like I was crazy. No one had seen the bus disappear, no one believed my story about the passengers who weren't alive. I checked everywhere for proof: my phone, security cameras, anything that could confirm the nightmare I'd been through. But there was nothing. It was like the whole event had been erased, like I was the only one who remembered. That loneliness settled deep inside me. Even now, I struggled to talk about that night without feeling the weight of disbelief pressing down on me. Friends and family tell me to forget it, to move on, but how do you move on from something that defies explanation? Sometimes, I still hear whispers late at night, or catch a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye that reminds me of those empty passengers. The fear and confusion from that ride never truly left me. And every time I pass a bus stop at midnight, I wonder if that bus is still out there somewhere, carrying souls trapped between worlds, and if one day, it will come for me again. Thank you for listening to my story. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's that sometimes the darkest journeys are the ones we never expect to take, and that even when no one believes us, our experiences are real. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more chilling tales that will keep you up at night, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember, sometimes the most ordinary places hide the most terrifying secrets. Stay safe out there, because you never know what might be watching from the shadows.